This is Radiant Voices Media.
Hey there, and welcome to the Transparently Jordan podcast, the podcast for the curious minds, the dreamers, and the high achievers. Here we dive into self-help, wellness, and mindset shifts that help you become your best self. Let's get into it. Hey there, and welcome to another episode. Today I am joined once again by Dawn Beaumont. Dawn has been on the podcast before. Be sure to head and check out her first episode. We are today going to be talking about the aftermath. So if you don't know Dawn is an amazing woman. She is vibrant. She is great with the community. And she also has her own podcast on the Radiant Voices Media family, the Heartbeats and Strides podcast. Dawn this year finished a amazing task. She did a epic duathlon over 200 days all across Australia to raise awareness and funds for two charities close to her heart. Today, we are going to be talking about those 200 days. We are going to be talking about her journey. We are going to be talking about the ups. We are going to be talking about the downs and just getting an insight on the behind the scenes of what this challenge was like, how she got through it all, and essentially her thoughts now that she's done and now that she's been in Adelaide for a bunch of weeks. So let's get into today's episode and Dawn's story. All right, I want to talk to you about sunglasses made for runners by runners. That's why I wear Your Run sunglasses. Lightweight, zero bounce, and they stay locked in even when you are sweating through speed sessions, long runs, out in the sun, whatever it might be. They are stylish enough for daily wear, durable enough for race day, and just the perfect combo. Honestly, I love brands that get the sport, get the grind, and support the running community, not just the podium finishers. If you're serious about your run gear and want shades that perform as hard as you, go check out Your Run. Use my code Jordan10 to save some money and get yourself some stylish sunnies that actually perform and look good. Run smart, stay protected, look good doing it with Your Run sunnies. This episode is brought to you by the Kova House, the running apparel brand built for runners who care about culture, community, and staying true to running. Kova House is more than gear, it's a movement. And we're kicking off our very first community group run on January 7th. If you want to be part of this running crew that values connection, culture, and showing up, RSVP now and join the Kova House community here in Adelaide. Stay true, stay moving with the Kova House. All right. Well, welcome back to the podcast, Dawn. It's super excited to talk to you today, to have you back.
Excited to be back.
For you listening, if you want to head back, I would definitely recommend heading back and listening to the first part to this. We went through kind of your lead up to these 200 days that you have gone by. So I'm super interested in just kind of diving into the actual 200 days that went through. You know, I think it's great to talk about the ups. It's also awesome to talk about the downs as well.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I know you've posted on Instagram a few of those downs and things like that. And I think just like really highlighting the whole experience and the behind the scenes stuff will be quite insightful, really. But
yeah, that's what people seem to be very interested in.
Yeah.
Is how do you actually do this for 200 days in a row?
I know. And that's why, again, I think long form content is great because we can actually have, you know, we have the hour to talk about this. But maybe for the person listening that doesn't exactly know what has just gone ahead a couple months ago, maybe just kind of dive a little bit into what you have done the last 200 days.
Oh, I can definitely do that. So I decided to take on a big challenge kicking off in the 25th of Feb. I took off from Adelaide to run and ride around Australia, so crossing every state and territory in the country. So the aim was to do 20,000 kilometres over 200 days. I managed to get just over 15,000 Ks in the bank. So we'll definitely, I know in the next, during this podcast, we'll talk about sort of why the K 5K target that I originally set wasn't hit. But so it was all to raise awareness for heart health and money for the Heart Foundation and the Royal Flying Doctor. So it was to call it an epic duathlon for a dual cause. I definitely, in some instances, underestimated the epicness of it out on the road. Yeah. So there's things you can plan for with these things, and there is things you just cannot. And that just made it all the more fun and interesting. And I've been home. So we got home last day, running back into the Discovery Park in West Beach on the 12th of September. And since then, it's, trying to settle back into life. But 200 days where we took off, obviously, in summer. So we're all starting to feel the warm again today. I know the training session today, we're all whinging a bit on how warm it was to do that session. But, I had, oh my goodness, at least 150 days of my 200 was in extreme heat conditions. So I didn't have much of a time off, and your body does condition to it. But yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome, Jordan. It was wicked. Yeah.
So you started in Adelaide, you ended in Adelaide.
Yes.
Where exactly was the course?
Yeah. So took off heading west. So I went through the Eyre Peninsula and then into Ceduna and then across the Nullarbor. And then I literally followed the coast after that. So dropped down to Esperance in Western Australia, across to Albany, and then up the coast of WA. So I spent 73 days of the 200 days just in WA, to give you context of how big Western Australia is. Trust me, when we crossed that border into the Northern Territory, my husband and I were very, very happy about that. But so we went all the way up, hoping to miss the humidity. So we sort of timed it so that we hit the dry season up the top. Again, best laid plans, but we hit just outside of Monkey Mia up in WA, and the humidity was brutal, absolutely brutal. Talk about taking the wind out of my sails. Again, we're whinging about flies today, but unless you have to wear a fly net over your helmet while you're cycling and run a hydration hose up just to try and keep hydrated, you don't know what heat and flies are.
People.
No complaining, no complaining. So someone said to me today, it's just a bit of extra protein, but trust me, I had a lot of extra protein up through there. But so up through WA, Northern Territory, and then sort of headed north up to Darwin, and then all the way down around Uluru, which was incredible. And then came back up to cross Barkly Highway through Queensland, and then literally spat out in Townsville, and then just kept my way down the coast. So until we got to Newcastle, we had pretty awesome weather, and then it decided to tell me it was winter, and I then copped some of the most horrendous rain, hail, lightning, and then when we got down to Tasmania, even got snow. So it was quite. We saw every weather pattern in Australia in the 200 days. So then we came up through literally New South Wales, crossed into Canberra because I wanted to cross every state and territory in the country, and we did. Dropped back down in through Victoria. Had to finish Victoria off first. It was very bizarre. So for two reasons. One, we needed to get on the Spirit of Tasmania with all my gear, to be able to do Tasmania. But Archie boy, the little fluffy puppy dog mascot, couldn't come across to us with us to Tasmania. So we had to offload him to his grandparents across the border before we headed over. So did Tassie, and then, got to play all through Penola and the beautiful part of Mount Gambier and that before we headed home. So through the Barossa, we sort of came back up through Renmark and then dropped back down. So absolutely, amazing. We still, yeah, the last couple of weeks, my husband and I just keep talking about various parts of the trip and what bits we miss the most. What are the things we miss and what are the things we don't miss. But yeah, it was amazing, Jordan. It was amazing.
It's still fresh, so I
It is fresh.
assume you're still living in it and you're still kind of taking it all in, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think too, like you mentioned something interesting that you plan for these things, but sometimes you underestimate, a certain amount of things.
Yes.
What were some of the things that kind of came to be that you were not ready for?
Yeah, look, I think definitely the biggest thing that Kurt, my husband, who was my support crew, and I worked out pretty quickly is logistically having one person as a support crew for this to then do what I originally set out to do, which was the 20,000. It just got too much for him and I to manage. So, when you're doing 6 to 8 hours of load a day, the last thing you want to be doing is anything else. So you don't want to be having to set up camp or, anything like that. And unfortunately, we were pretty naive thinking that Kurt and I can just manage it ourselves. So it just didn't work. So we changed that up pretty quick. So once we got across it was only a couple of days into the Nullarbor, we just went, look, nah, this continual loop, which is what we originally had planned for the 20,000 Ks. Look, let's just, get the Ks in, get the awareness out there and do the best we can under the circumstances. And yeah, so we just adjusted our logistics management side of things, to be honest, Jordan. It was definitely underestimated how much support I needed in that space. The other thing that I got advice before I left, but, from a, be honest, from a financial perspective, we, it would have been great to have someone to come out and do the social media side and all that sort of thing for me. But yeah, we just, Kurt and I had invested and bought quite a bit to go out there and to then try and do that for a 200-day period. It was just not practical. But I do a full day of load, and in around that I'm doing media engagements and, all my social media, and, got trolled quite a bit there for, I think at one point it was, I was spending probably about half an hour, 45 minutes a day just blocking that sort of crap, which was pretty rough. So when you're already bit cooked and, trying to deal with people that, decide to throw rocks at you, you just go, oh, yeah, come on, guys. But so that was probably the two big things I think we wished, we'd done differently. But doesn't mean that, we're pretty stoked with what we were able to achieve still. With that was just literally two of us. But the other thing we didn't sort of plan for was some of the random stuff, right? So dingoes on the Nullarbor, right? So I did not know dingoes were on the Nullarbor. So, and I don't think it's something that you would normally see under normal circumstances, right? So we got told we're probably only like a couple 100 Ks into the Nullarbor crossing, and a couple of truckies we'd caught up with at a truck stop said, got to be careful there, love. There's dingoes out there. And we're like, what? There's dingo? No, basically being blunt bullshit. There's not dingoes out there. There's dingoes. And they hunt in packs out there. And, on a few occasions, Kurt had to. So obviously we're wanting to start early. It's getting, anywhere from 40 to 50 degrees out on the road. So, I'm doing a 10K run and then followed by anywhere from, 80 to 100 Ks on the bike and another 5K run. So we're trying to get that first run in as early as possible before that really the sun came up too much and got too hot. Problem with that is that's when the dingoes are most active. So, I had to account for dingoes trying to literally eat me out on the Nullarbor. So was not expecting that. So that threw me a bit. It was a bit like... I don't think you could script dingoes. And we actually, there was, some of the people we got to meet out there were just absolutely awesome, right? So there was a cool father and daughter team that were cycling. We met them on the other side of the Nullarbor, and they were cycling across, and we gave them a heads up about the dingoes. And it was only like probably a week or so after we got a message. I got a message from them saying, yeah, we had a major issue. They were sniffing around our tents because they were just packing and cycling across. They were sniffing around tents. We actually had to leave, like, because they were trying to go us and our stuff. Yeah. And they're like, I was like, oh, I'm glad I warned you guys, because they're like, we would never have thought about dingoes either.
Yeah.
But
we don't think about getting eaten.
Well, yeah. It's Australia, people. Like, I was expecting snakes, which we saw a lot of. Yeah. Crocodiles when you get up the top end, but dingoes. And I was thinking about dingoes around Uluru, because obviously the stories about dingoes in that area. So we're expecting that. But we didn't, again, when we were at Kings Canyon, we were staying at Discovery Park in Kings Canyon, and, the dingoes literally come right up to your van and steal stuff off you. You can't leave any food or anything out, and everything's, has to be secured and that. But, 2:00 in the morning, you hear them right outside your van trying to get in. Like, it's one of those things that, it's bizarre. So, dingoes are a different thing. So I definitely didn't expect some of the wildlife. Didn't expect, what was the other really? Oh, the lightning hitting the bike on the roof of the car. Had a massive desert storm come in again on the Nullarbor, and Kurt's good old Nullarbor, man, it threw some stories up pretty early. I was so glad I got that out of the road early. Yeah. Glad I got the Nullarbor done early. But Kurt's like, I was so determined. I had this kilometre target this particular day, and I'm just like, I was dirty with him. So I had a UHF 2-way to Kurt in the car, so he can talk to me through the day, warn me what's going on, warn trucks, that sort of thing. And he came over the radio and he goes, look to your right, and this desert storm just came tearing in. And I mean like tearing in. If anyone's been out in some of these remote areas in Australia, it's when a storm comes in like that, she comes in quick. And so I'm grumpy because my husband's saying that I need to get off the bike, and I'm like, no, I'm fine. It'll be fine. Next minute, lightning hit in front of me on the bike. And so my husband, in very colourful words, told me to get off said bike. So I was quite grumpy at this point, and we did have to take cover. It was pretty bloody dangerous out there. So we threw the bike on the roof. So I was carrying two bikes. So I was on a road bike. I was on the gravel bike, and the road bike was still on the roof. Threw the bike up. I'm grumpy. I'm driving because I was really grumpy. I was like, that's it. I'm driving. Fine. I'm taking over. I had to have some sort of control. Yeah. So we decided to turn off and head towards a little town called Fowler's Bay. And it's literally in the middle of nowhere, this little caravan park spot, beautiful part of the world, and under normal conditions. And we're driving down, and we were just mesmerised because we're driving down this gravel road, and it had rained, and all these wombats were out drinking the water out of these, divots in the road. And we're like, this is incredible. Like, how amazing. We wouldn't have seen this. Like, this is so cool, like these silver lining type things, blah, blah, blah. So we're, chatting away, thinking this is amazing. I'm recording some of these wombats. Next minute, we just hear this crack, and lightning had hit my road bike on the roof of the car and fried all the electrics. So I lost a road bike. So one of my, so I only had the two bikes. I lost a bike until I got to Perth. So before I could actually get it looked at and fixed, because, I couldn't change gears. The whole thing had just fried, and I was like, that's not ideal. So my bike's got this cool little scar on it. From the lightning. So that was a cool little story. Yeah. Good little, little takeaway for the day. But the Nullarbor definitely reminded me how hard this was going to be. I definitely had a moment before we hit the Nullarbor. I think I was psyching myself out before we hit the Nullarbor, because obviously she's not small. She's big. It's open. It's boring. It's barren. Obviously now I know there's dingoes, but it's not something you would, be ultra excited to run a ride across. And I was really doubting whether or not I could do it. So we're in Sejuna, and this is before obviously we head across, and I just said to Kurt, I just don't know. I was freaking out. And Kurt just said to me, he goes, you got, one or two choices. We either keep going and we finish this, or we go home. And he knew damn well I wasn't going to, I wasn't going home. So when we were going across the Nullarbor and when we got across, I felt like, yes, I've got this, right? This is fine. So whatever else is thrown at me now, I've had dingoes, I've had lightning, storms, shit's gone south. It'll be fine. No worries here. Like, we'll be absolutely fine. I had it all within that first couple of weeks. So I'm like, this will be fine. Little did I know. So that trip just it was the gift that kept on giving.
Yeah. And I think like what people don't realize when you are, like you were saying, going for hours on end every single day. I think back to just the 7 marathons that I did a couple years back. I remember after day 2, I was so physically exhausted after running, that second marathon in 2 days. I was like, I basically slept the rest of the day. So, you have to, and I was raising awareness back then as well for Bravehearts, and, you're raising awareness. And like you were saying, the last thing that you want to do is then social media is like a full-time job these days, right? Like, and then you have people reaching out wanting to go on, media or podcasts or this and that. And you have to kind of put on a smile and like,
smile and wave,
exactly,
baby.
Not act like you're dying inside really. So like, I can only imagine what, like, again, I think back, everybody, and I think I've done an episode on this. I literally legit slept the rest of the day, woke up to eat and then slept. And then there's you out there, having to cycle after and then having to like do an interview or this and that. Like, when did it first hit you that you were like, oh my God, I'm exhausted? Like, was it the first week? Was it the first month? Do you think, if you can think back, when was it exactly when you were like, this is getting a bit much, really? All right, team, quick shout out to today's sponsor, because they've genuinely been a game changer for me personally, and that is YouFoods. So here's the thing, no matter what your goals are, fat loss, muscle building, training for something big, or honestly just trying to survive a busy week, YouFoods has meals that actually taste amazing. And I'm not talking about those sad frozen meals that taste like fake ingredients and disappoint you every single time. These meals taste fresh, they taste real, and they don't feel like you're on a meal plan at all. I literally look forward to them. But the real reason that I'm obsessed personally is time. My time is everything, and saving literally 3 to 5 hours a week from grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning the kitchen, that honestly is priceless to me. Those hours go back into my training. They go back into this podcast, into the other podcasts that I produce, and just my sanity as well. So if you've been thinking about giving pre-made meals a go, or you just want to make your life so much easier, use my link in the show notes and you'll get a free box of meals to try out. Seriously, try it. If you're anything like me, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. All right, let's talk about supplements that actually earn a spot in my routine. Not hype, just results. I love the Tropica matcha because I love clean energy without the crash. But also I like how this matcha is smooth, it's not bitter, and I genuinely look forward to having it every day. There's also the pineapple creatine. Creatine isn't just for muscle performance, you guys. There is more research coming out about how it supports mental clarity, mood, etc., etc. If you train, think, move, breathe, you should be taking creatine, in my opinion. At nighttime, I also love their beauty custard. It legit tastes like dessert and supports recovery while I sleep. It is collagen, so it's great for the skin, the hair, joints, longevity. Both men and women, everybody should be taking collagen. You guys can use my code JORDSDAY10 at checkout to save yourself some money. That's JORDZDAY10 at checkout. JORDSDAY10. Thank you, everybody.
That's a really, really good question. I think I think I realized that the 30, 35 hours of training that I'd done leading up um, was great, but nowhere near what my body was going to need out there. So I the hype of just before you leave, right? And there was a lot. I didn't sleep. I was just feeling exhausted. So that first couple of days, I was wrecked because I think I was. It's that build up. You're not sleeping. You're not eating well enough. You're tired. Everyone wants to talk to you. I was very overwhelmed those first couple of days, and my husband and my mum and dad could definitely contest to this. I was a pain in the ass for that first week because I just could not settle down. Sejuna was definitely an eye opener for me. I was really tired when I got there, but I was putting a lot of that down to the hype build up, and I was on the road and it was all happening, and so it was more. I was thinking it was more that. I think I hit my first real wall where I had a real moment was just before Margaret River, which is bottom end of Western Australia. So I was probably maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks in where I went, I am absolutely exhausted. And I I'm very fortunate. I sleep very well. My recovery was, just so important every day. But yeah, I tried not to think too much about the next day or the next day or the next day. I tried to just focus on the day that I was in because I found that as soon as I started to think about, a week or 2 weeks time, I just feel really overwhelmed, and I have not felt like that before, and that I think was a really big new experience for me. I had never really felt really cooked before, or felt like I couldn't do something or achieve something, and I feel like just before Margaret River, and it was bloody hilly. It's hilly. WA is a very hilly area, and I just feeling really, really just spent. And I just, yeah, I spoke to my parents daily. Dad obviously being my cycling coach, so he would talk me through quite a few things. But talking to mum's like the pom poms cheerleader, right? So she's like, "You've got this," she was that type of person. Whereas my dad's very methodical and practical, and he's like, "Right, so you're eating enough, and like he was, sort of in that headspace. And my husband was sort of the balance of both. He seemed to just read the room with me and talk it through when he needed to. But you're absolutely right. Like 200 days is a bloody long time to get yourself up every day and do it all again. I think the changing environment helps. And you take the quick wins, right? So if it's okay, well, you've got to get through, the first 10K, and then you've got a interview. So make the interview. So I'd make my interview straight after my first run. So then that would force a bit of a rest. The engagement would give me a hype because I'd get a little bit of, I guess a bit of a jeer up about that, like, oh, yep, no, this is all we're doing this for the right reasons. And, and then I'd jump on the bike and I go, okay, well, in 2 hours, you get a can of Coke. Like it really was one of those things like what wins can I get here, and take each day as it came and digest each day as well, and sort of go, well, what worked and what didn't work. And so, because Kurt and I would have team meetings every night. So, and 9 times out of 10 it was over a very big bowl of Cocoa Pops. So my last meal of every day was this massive bowl of Cocoa Pops. Cocoa Pops and I became really good friends. So I'd be eating my Cocoa Pops and we'd be, okay, well, what was shit about today, or what was good about today, or what are we worried about tomorrow, or whether it's weather conditions or engagement opportunities, or things going wrong with the bikes, because I had issues with the bikes. We'll talk about the fact that the car turbo blew up in the middle of nowhere in Western Australia, so that wasn't helpful. So we had a major stress factor there. So Yeah, it depends on where we were, what we do, how we manage it on the day, but it ain't for the faint-hearted.
No, no,
It
not
ain't
at
for the
all.
faint-hearted.
What in life usually, like not even the 200 days, but what keeps you motivated generally with the things that you do?
Um, I'm a goal person. So, and one thing I think one of the biggest learnings I had out on the road was that I couldn't rely just on motivation, because motivation is an emotionally driven thing, and my emotions were all over the shop. So I literally would be like laughing on the bike, having a giggle and that to myself over some random thing I'd seen out there. Within half an hour, I've got this horrendous headwind. I'm feeling like my ass is getting handed to me on a platter, like I'm not in a good way, and I'd be crying, on the bike. So I couldn't rely on motivation to get me out of bed every day. For me, and I've spoken about this a few times, for me, it's discipline. Like, if you set, I like to set myself goals, and I believe in setting a goal that scares you. So, because if you don't, then sort of what's the point? Like, I don't know. I had a lot of those, why am I here on the planet type thought bubbles out there, like, what is my purpose in life?
You have
It was
so much
that
time.
it's so much time, so
yeah.
much solo time where you just go, well, what do I want out of life? Like, what do I want to leave behind? What is my purpose? What is my drive here? And, I use that as paired with the discipline to set the goal to go, okay, well, now what's next? Yeah. And that is probably why one of the big reasons why when I got back, I really struggled. I really, really struggled. So because, I'd been gearing up for Queen of Hearts Run and Ride for, 2 or 3 years prior to it, go out and do it. You're 200 days out on the road. You have this really big purpose for a really long period of time. And then you get back and go, oh, now what? What is it? It was so much a part of my identity. You sort of go, well, whew, I've done it now.
I think that's a story so common, isn't it?
It
with
is.
endurance athletes
It
in general.
is.
Like,
I know you've talked about it.
I mean, let alone like 200 days. Like, I think people feel that way after just running a marathon or a 10K. They've
Yeah.
spent months on end planning for that. And like you were saying, I love that statement. Like, it's part of your identity. You're literally before work, after work.
Yes.
For those lucky people out there, that might be work for you. And then to have it finished, it's kind of like, well, what now?
That's it.
Your purpose
You feel
is
lost.
kind of gone.
Yep.
How did you deal with that when you got back? And
Not well.
yeah, because you were saying, like, we were talking off air, like,
Yeah.
if I asked you the first month after you came back, you
Yes.
probably would have said, no, I'm
Yeah,
not in the
not
right
ready
mind
yet.
space. So
Yeah.
what kind of got you into the mind space, to come on today, basically?
Well, firstly, I love working with you,
Yeah,
so it's
thank
good
you.
fun. It's good fun, and you do create a fun environment, so it's quite lovely. Look, the first month, then I was very fortunate. 40 Winks gave me an entry to the Melbourne Marathon. So after a month of being back, I literally came back, did a couple of long runs, and then ran the Melbourne Marathon. Because that's what you do after you spend 200 days on the road. You go and run a marathon. It was cool. But one thing that I wasn't expecting when I got back, so I knew I'd feel flat, right? So it wasn't the first endurance event that I'd trained for, a multi-day endurance event, right? So, when I was 30, I turned 30 on Kokoda. I did an 8-day hiking trip, with my dad. Dad and I have trekked Kokoda and Machu Picchu and Larapinta. So I'm used to training for prolonged periods of time and then going out and doing a multi-day endurance event. Obviously, not to the scale that I did this year. So I was expecting a level of flatness, slumping when I got back. So that's why when the Melbourne Marathon option came up, I was like, yeah, that's going to be really good, because then that's going to give me a little bit of a focus when I get back, give me a little bit more purpose. We'll see how we go. what I wasn't expecting was how flat I was going to be, how I couldn't seem to process how I was feeling or articulate how I was feeling. I was just to the point where I was like, I'd cut myself off from everything and everyone for probably about 6 weeks when I got home. It right down to my parents. So I said before, I speak to my parents daily. My mum, I think I went for like 4 days without speaking to my mum, which is just unheard of. I just literally just went into this complete leave me alone, I'm not coping type environment. I didn't leave the house. So I think so as soon as I got back as well, I went straight back to work, which for anyone doing a endurance event, I don't recommend. Don't go straight back to work. I had to because financially we needed me to. Kurt and I had just spent, 6.5 months on the road not getting money. So, bank manager doesn't like it when you don't pay your mortgage. So, get home and earn some money. So we did that, but I was very fortunate. I finished up with my role and moved into a new organisation, which has been fantastic. And it gave me a couple of weeks between the two roles, which was really good. But that also just allowed me to, in a way, heal from it and process what had actually happened. But I literally did not leave the house in that period of time. And Kurt was worried. He got concerned and he's like, you need to process how you're feeling with this. Like, and bless my husband's cotton socks. He's your stock standard Australian male. He's you don't talk about your feelings. But he did, and he was wonderful and very supportive. But I also have struggled, and I've said this to a couple of people now. I've struggled with big groups of people. So I'm a very extroverted person, always have been. I trained myself over 200 days not to be used to people.
That's the thing.
This is the thing.
For majority of the day, you're around nobody.
That's right. It's me, myself, and I. And yeah, it's coming back and into the beautiful family that is Run as One and stuff like that. They're incredible group of people, and we're very keen to obviously find out what had happened and how it all went. And I really struggled with that. Really, really struggled. So, and I'll be honest, I'm still struggling with it. I went out with the crew again this morning and yeah, it was a lot. So I'm just pacing myself with that and working out what works and what doesn't work in that space. But, the reason for I feel much stronger in myself now and a lot more settled, which is good. So then I was like, yeah, it's easy as to come and play with you today. But yeah, definitely if you'd asked me that first 4 to 6 weeks, hey, come and jump on the, let's digest your 200 days. I don't think I could have done that as easily. Even down to, so I broke the Guinness World Record for the most consecutive duathlons ever undertaken in a row. I kicked it off in Margaret River and then finished it when I crossed the line here in Adelaide. I even struggled putting the evidence together for that to submit because I had to go back through video and photos, and I put that off for a couple of weeks because I just couldn't, and I had time, thank goodness. But yeah, the idea of even downloading that and having to go through and go, okay, yeah, that shows enough evidence of, what I was doing out there to relive that. I wasn't in the right headspace. So it took me even until I had to provide some more there, I reckon about 2 weeks ago, a bit more footage. So I sent all of that in and I was like, yep, no, I'm feeling better because I can at least look at it. So I don't know if anyone else would feel like when you first get your race photos and you're all excited and stuff like that, but then about 3 or 4 weeks usually after your race, you can sometimes look at them and just go, oh, it's done now, and you're like, well, now what? And it's almost like a trigger for that a little bit. So it felt a little bit triggery for me. Whereas, yeah, now, what are we, 13, 14 weeks later? Yeah, I look at it with, pride and, Kurt and I talk about it now. And I didn't realize to the extent that Kurt was struggling when we got back too. He's gave up 200 days to be out on the road to support his wife, and he's now home, and he's now like, well, what's my purpose? So, and I didn't think of that until only a week or two ago, and having a glass of wine, him and we were talking about it, and it was good. And he even said, like, I'm excited to talk about what we did now, but again, if I'd asked him 6 weeks ago, it would have been, nah, don't talk to me yet. So yeah, it's very interesting.
It's a very interesting thing because, yeah, like you've mentioned it a few times that it could essentially be, what's your purpose now? Like you're sitting at home, you have just ride 200 days, or even to the person listening right now, if you've gone through the same thing and you've done a marathon or you've done a 10K or something.
Absolutely.
I think if you're sitting at home on the couch and you're thinking like, well, I don't need to now, because generally speaking, I think when you get back from something like that, you're also on like a deload as well, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas when you're the years prior training for something like that, like you're saying, your entire life revolves around that basically.
Absolutely
you're
did.
running, you're riding daily, basically 7 days a week sometimes. And
Yep.
for you to then not have that is, I think that's why, professional athletes, for example, when their sport's done, depression hits really. Like, I think it's a real
100%.
world example, and it's a real thing really. And it's so hard to try and, I guess, get out of that. But trying to avoid that, because you hear evidence out there, oh, well, that can't be your only thing. That's the reason why. But I don't think that's necessarily
No,
it,
I'm
right?
sorry. Sorry, that's not the answer.
Because
that's not the
exactly,
answer.
like, even for me,
It's not
when
human.
yeah, exactly. Like, I think when I talked about this recently, the 70.3 that I did, like, I probably for a week, like, that was probably the biggest event that I've ever trained for. And for the entire week, I was exactly that. Like, I might go for a run here and there or a ride here and there, but like not to the extent that I was doing.
No.
And I had all of this extra time, and not that I didn't have other things, like I was still doing this podcast and other things that I loved. But again, I don't think having other things is still necessarily going to prevent that really.
No. And that's something that, oh, man, you're bang on. I remember talking to you just before you went for your 70.3, and I know I said to you, be kind to yourself when you get back because you'll be flat.
And now I know where that came from.
Now you know where that came from. So because it's I don't think it's something that you should be trying to prevent. I just think you need to acknowledge it and be aware that it's going to come, and that it's okay. And that you're allowed to actually feel a bit, but this is life in general, right? I was literally having this conversation this morning. It's your year 12 students that are just about to finish up. Then what? It's the bride and groom that have just got married. And there's 12, 18 months of prep, and then they have their wedding day, and blink and it's over, and then you go, okay, well now what? So it is. I think any milestone-y type thing you're going to have a level of now what, but that's okay. And I think it's important to really sit in that a bit and digest it and acknowledge it. And you can say you feel like poo, and that's okay. But I've sort of always got my beautiful parents in the back of my head. My parents are very much, even when we were kids, you get a certain amount of wallow time and then you've got to find a way out. And that was, I am very fortunate to, I guess, have been raised like that, but also had that level of support that I've had, that I've got this incredible, catchment around me that can help me get out of that. But for me, having my own podcast now that I get to host, thank you to Radiant Voices Media, Heartbeats and Strides is putting it out there. But having that gives me a purpose because I'm able to talk to others and get that engagement. My why hasn't changed. My why around getting the message around heart health and the importance of heart health hasn't changed. So being able to morph, I guess, Queen of Hearts run and ride and be able to tie that up in a bow and go, okay, well, that part of my life is done, but it doesn't mean that I can't use that moving forward. Hence the birth of Heartline Endurance and wanting to keep doing this. You know, I loved going around the country and getting to meet people. And I'm just that for me, it's like, okay, well, what's the next goal? The next goal is, you know, February 2027, I'll be running and riding from the top of New Zealand to the bottom of New Zealand. And at the end of it, I will be sea kayaking across Cook Strait from the north to the South Island. So, and I will be bringing a documentary crew with me, and we will be telling people's stories that want to come along and do a component of the event. And it's all about raising that awareness for heart health. So I rechanneled, I guess is probably the best way to put it. I rechanneled how I was feeling into, well, what is my purpose now? What is my focus going to be? But giving it a realistic timeline and allowing myself a chance to process how I was feeling and in my own way. You know, it can't be someone telling you to get over it. It can't be someone saying, well, just go and book another event, or don't. You can't sort of allow that. You need to just sort of have some you time where you go, what do I actually want to do? You know, what did I love about doing that endurance event or that lifestyle moment? And, you know, what else is for me? Because that's living life, right? That is living life.
And I think too, like, and this is, of course, all lived experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not talking and we're not saying this is how you should act after you've done an event or whatever. But I think for me, too, when I think to endurance sports, like we were talking about this earlier as well, like, you know, somebody has achieved a massive goal, like running a marathon, and then it's kind of like, well, now what? You know, I think sometimes events or, you know, all of these challenges that people are putting out there in the world are amazing, but people too then are I think hyper focusing, that's becoming their identity, and then they're losing the sight that, oh, I just did an amazing thing, I just ran a marathon, you know, like I need to do something more next time, right? Like I think that's also for me maybe part of it, and something that I've realized, like when I did the 777, like the 7 marathons, I really, like, for the first year after that, that's a lie, I did Gold Coast Marathon after that, but like for a while I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to do another marathon. Like,
Yeah,
I've
correct.
just done 7 in 7 days, like
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Like,
How do I
it's
beat
nothing.
that? Yeah.
Exactly, right? And
Yeah.
I think like I couldn't think of it like that as well, because like that also doesn't do well with your purpose and with your drive going forwards as well. Like, you know, I could sit here and be like, oh, well, I need to do 50K now, or they're like, I need to do 100K now. And I think like things are getting lost in that space as well. Like, we don't necessarily need to level up, you know, the last thing that we've done, or level up what somebody else has done or whatever like that. I think like sitting there reflecting and like sitting in your own experience is quite
Yes.
important to begin with, basically.
Absolutely. You are absolutely spot on. I think it is one of those, we chase PBs, don't we? And we chase, we chase doing things bigger and better. You know, it's a natural human nature. And I absolutely fell into that trap post Queen of Hearts as well. You know, I was like, well, how do I top 200 days around the country and get, breaking a Guinness World Record? But that was completely the wrong question to
Not
ask.
the point. Yeah.
Correct.
Mhm.
And that I needed some time to, I guess, process that myself before I went, okay, well, why am I doing this? And it was the why, right? So, and I think you need to answer the why, and then that gives you your answer. And I think that's something that we are all guilty of, and it's so evident. You know what we were talking about before we came on and started recording around, the explosion of running, the explosion of marathons, this whole massive, drive to you're not a runner unless you've done a marathon. What an absolute load of crap, and it's, and I think that's the one thing that I've, I, I struggle with is when people are talking to me and they come out and they go, oh, well, it's not the same level as what you've done. Well, don't compare yourself to me.
That language, like I
It
just
just-
ran 10K today, or I just did
it does
this.
my
I
head
hate
in.
that. Yeah.
It's one of the most frustrating things ever. And I'm like, you should never compare yourself to someone else, right? So easier said than done. This is speaking from me. I can definitely hand on heart say that I don't live by that all the time. But I feel like, one thing that I read years ago was don't compare your beginning with my end. And I think it's, especially on a running journey, if you're just starting out in the world of running, why do you want to run a marathon? Why do you want to run 10K? Why do you want to, PB in a 5K park run? So if you can't answer that, then take a breather, man, and start to, what, are you doing, running for your health? Are you doing running to make sure you're around for your kids? Are you, like that's, and I am very big on asking people, why do you run? And, I did that. I'm very fortunate to get to run with the movement club out there at Festival Tower. And, there's a couple of runners I've been running with the last, 12, 13 weeks. And, they've come such a long way. But, they're both gearing up for, they want to get in and get a half marathon and stuff like that. But their why is really cool. And I think that to me sort of goes, okay, well, they get it. They get it. But I think it's that, I do think, you hit the nail on the head. It's that lived experience. It's that, life experience in general. But, I do worry a little bit about I've just run 10Ks, it's only just. I was like, dude, 10Ks is a lot, eh? And I had to change my language with that, Jordan, like I feel like I downplay some of the stuff that I've done because I don't want people feeling like that as well. I don't want, what they do laugh, I think I read something that said, how do you know someone's run a marathon? They'll tell you, because it's a thing. But I think it's, I don't want to detract from what people are doing. And I think it's really important that, anytime you're starting to feel like you're comparing yourself with someone, just stop, man, and just remind yourself why you're doing it. Do you like getting up in the morning and going for a little wee trot in the beautiful sunshine? Then great. If you want to do it for a PB, knock yourself out. I'm not saying don't do that, but what I'm saying is if that then becomes your core focus and your core being, and I feel like you sort of lose track of your purpose.
I love that, because I think like what I got a lot from that as well is you need to have some internal factors there as well, right? Like you can't always do it for, like, yes, you are maybe doing something to raise awareness for this and that, but there needs to be some drive internally as well. There needs to be, like you were saying, there needs to be a why, there needs to be a purpose. And that can't always be for, oh, well, it's because I put it out there. And what if people think this? What if people think that? Right? Like, I think that's a common thing. And that's something that I've struggled with as well.
Oh, we've all done it.
When I did the 7-7 or even marathons, it ran through my head a lot. Oh, well, what if I don't finish this? Like, people are going to think this, people are going to think that,
Absolutely.
or blah, blah, blah. Like I've talked about this for so long and I've posted about this, blah, blah, blah. Did you throughout those 200 days struggle with that at all?
Yeah. Really,
what was that like for you?
Really badly in the end, to be honest. So I've obviously set the 20,000 Ks as my goal, and I reckon I was in the Northern Territory coming back up through to Alice Springs, and I was very fortunate. Dad actually flew in. So Kurt, unfortunately, I got really sick going towards Uluru. I ended up with an absolute horrendous head cold. I can't even remember a couple of days in there because I was so sick, but still had to do the Ks. Unfortunately, when you're in a tin box, you share that quite easily. And my poor support crew / husband got very, very sick. So fortunate timing though, Dad flew up to Alice Springs and then basically crewed me for 5 days, which was amazing. But Dad and I, it was the first time that I said to Dad, I don't think I'm going to hit the 20,000. I don't think it's going to be plausible with the amount of days that I've got left without destroying myself. Like, I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to achieve this. And Dad being very encouraging, and he set me some targets and things like that. And you know, I continually work towards it. But I had that real moment in the NT where I just went, does it matter? And, you know, and I had in my head, well, what are people going to think? You know, I'd had some absolutely disgusting, vile comments around that only, I'm going to say like 6 weeks before that, where, you know, people on social media are, you know, sending stuff like, you know, you're lying, you're not being accountable, all this sort of crap, you know. And I had, you know, and you can't help but that get in your head, you know, and especially when you're tired, you know, like you're not, you know, you got to remember, like I was not operating at my normal, fully rested, you know, self. You know, my body had been through a lot, had already done at that stage 100 days. You know, I'm over halfway through, and I'm just going, you know, what are people going to think? I'm not going to be able to hit this, you know. And so I felt like a failure at day 110. I still had 90 days to go, right? So you still got to pick yourself up. And, you know, I'm coming across Queensland, and, you know, I then had that moment of, it does not matter. You need to do a duathlon every day. You need to have conversations with people about heart health and get that message out there. That is your purpose. And every time I started to feel like I was letting the social media and Strava trolls, I got a lot of Strava trolling, I would remind myself of that. Have I had a conversation about heart health today? And I know of 3 people that I know of, because they sent me messages, that they went and had their hearts checked because they met me and had a conversation with me and found an issue that could have killed them. So I went, well, those conversations were pretty important. So does it matter that I'm going to come up short on the kilometres that I've set for myself? No, it doesn't. So I still feel frustrated that I didn't hit the 20,000. I don't think that's ever going to go away. But I was worrying too much about what other people thought. And I'm very fortunate. My husband, Kurt, is very not like that. He does not give a toss what people think of him, of who he supports in the football, which is Essendon, how he just doesn't. So he was a real grounding person in that space. So when I was going, oh, but this person just wrote this, and he's going, well, you know, he was very colourful. He was telling them to go away because it doesn't matter. So, you know, but again, I'm human, and you know, I got back to Adelaide, and I didn't. I went off Strava. I've not put much on Strava since I got back because I needed a break. You know, I needed a break, and all I still have in my head, well, people are going to judge me. People are going to judge my pace now. They're going to judge, you know, that I'm only doing 60 Ks a week, not 110 Ks a week. You know, it's you know, you've got to remind yourself that it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And really, how narrow-minded are the people, you know, and I had some people that were very, very close to me that turned on me before I left, and then were abusing me for weeks while I was out on the road. And it took me 8 weeks with one of them to tell them to go away. So, you know, even people that were considered at one time friends or close with me were assholes. So you sort of go, well, you know, why am I worrying about this? Why am I taking this on board? And I think that was one of the biggest life lessons for me out on the road, was just don't sweat it. It doesn't matter, Jordan. It just, if that was the only thing I learnt, and I learnt a lot out on the road, but if that was the only thing I think I learnt out on the road was life's too short to worry about idiots. So
I think one thing that I take a lot from that kind of stuff is it's all projection, isn't it?
absolutely.
I believe, like, I'm a strong believer that, like, if you are projecting, you know, love out there or optimism or whatever, it's
Absolutely.
because, you know, you've done the work to express that and you've done the work on yourself. I think, unfortunately, the people that do the opposite are, you know, the opposite basically. There's something deep down in there that needs to be worked on, basically.
Yeah.
But Dawn, what I'm interested to go into is the nitties and gritties. Like,
Okay.
you know, I think people are going to want to hear about you lost a bike. Maybe let's get into that. Start
The
with
logistics.
that. Yeah, the logistics. You said that you fixed it, sorry, up in Perth, is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So I had my mechanic here in Adelaide, Wade, who is beautiful, he and a friend, he actually flew into Perth and drove down to Albany, which is a 4-hour drive down south. He'd never been to Perth or Albany before, and he flew in to sort my bikes out off the Nullarbor, which was great. So we did a patch-up job there, but then we got into Perth, and he'd organised with one of his mechanic friends in Perth to take one of the bikes. So I then rode what did I break it before then? I broke the gravel bike. So Wade patched up the road bike. I then broke the gravel bike. The gravel bike then went to the bike doctor. I then had to ride. They fixed that. I had to run a ride out to Kalgoorlie, which is 600 k's east of Perth. So ran and rode out there. One day I got 3 flat tires in a row on the bike. I was so dirty that day that I cracked it, handed the wheel over to a bike shop over up in Kalgoorlie to change the inner tube for me because I was not dealing with that again. Long story short, they broke the hub in that wheel. So then I lost the gravel bike again. So then I had to ride my road bike all the way, so run and ride all the way back from Kalgoorlie back to Perth. Now, anyone Beetle knows mine site roads, then it is not designed for the road bike that I had. The gravel bike was definitely the most used bike. So that wasn't ideal. So again, patch up job in Perth. And then we seemed to be fine for a while on the bike side of things, which was good. So bikes were going good. By the way, I do need to put out there, my body did not break down. Okay. So my bike and my gear broke down before I did. So I, touch wood, I did not get a load niggle or any real drama in the 200 days. So I thought that was pretty bloody awesome, just putting that out there. But because I was thinking I got a shocking head cold in Uluru, but I could work with that. So the bikes were fine. We get up to Broome. We're coming out of Broome, and I couldn't even remember we're at this little caravan park, had a lovely night, awesome couple that ran it. One of them was a diesel mechanic, so we're just shooting shit as you do. We were 200 k's down the road within a couple of days of that, and something was going wrong with the car. We kept getting these like dashboard lights come up on the car, and both Kurt and I aren't, massive, handy mechanic-y people. So I phoned a friend because he's the diesel mechanic I've just met, right? So phoned a friend. He's like, mate, I think it's this. Give the Isuzu Kununurra a call and let him know, But we're still 800 Ks, right? 900 Ks from Kununurra. That's, 8 days of running and riding. We limped the car. So we're obviously towing a caravan. We limped the car into Kununurra. Turbo's gone on the car. So the turbo is basically what gives the power to the car to be able to tow. We're in the middle of nowhere, but like you can't get parts, right? So Kununurra is, I'm going to go off the top of my head here and excuse me for anyone that I get this wrong, but we're 600-700 Ks from Catherine, which is about 1,000 Ks from Darwin, which is your next basically major city. So it was a warranty job. Isuzu are amazing. They sent the parts up to Darwin, so we had to limp the car. But by the time we got to Catherine, we couldn't tow anymore. So we had to dump the van at Catherine. Lucky, though, that we were beautiful Discovery Park team looked after us as they did around the country, and we limped the car up to me still running and riding, I might add, every day. So stressing about the fact that we've now got a car that we've still got to get around the rest of the country with, that's now not performing. And again, putting it out there, I was fine.
Yeah.
The car was
Body
not.
was fine, yeah.
So we get into Darwin, and I couldn't get out of first gear. Like the car wouldn't go more than 10 k's an hour. So limped it in, got it all sorted. Then that was all sorted. So it was fine and performed fine for the rest of the time. No issues with the car. But we get back to Catherine. So we're obviously coming back through the guts, down through Alice Springs to go to Uluru. So we're running and riding along. Get back to Catherine, and massive rain weather event had come through, and our van was now bogged. So our van was parked up, but it got bogged. So we get back. I've run that day, and we had to dig the caravan out of a bog. So I got very, very creative when it came to dealing with the van. We broke many things on the van, and 9 times out of 10 it was my fault. I fried I don't know how many fuses. Kurt worked out how to manage fuses on both the car and that. I had a don't ask me why, but I was hanging for roasted potatoes, and we'd bought this caravan air fryer thing, right? It was a 12-volt thing. Plugged it in, blew the fuses in the van. And I'm like, this is bullshit. I really want these roasted potatoes. Like, I really felt like potatoes. I was craving. I ate a lot, by the way. But so I cracked it. I jump in the car, turn the car on, plug it in because I really wanted these potatoes. Fried the fuses in the car as well. So yeah, that air fryer got benched, and we ended up buying a. I literally walked into a Big W in my cycling kit. Rode there, walked in, full kit, picked up an air fryer from Big W, a Ninja air fryer from Big W. I was like, you're coming with me. So, because I was hooked on potatoes, bacon, and sour cream was sort of, I was obviously the salt and the carbs I was craving. But so, yeah, I then at one stage, I know, and it was my responsibility, I put the, one of the stabilizer legs and hadn't secured it properly, and it got caught, and I snapped it. And our rule was, you break it, you fix it. So whether it was Kurt or I had done a boo-boo, we had to fix the boo-boo. So I'm underneath the van, in run kit, having to unbolt a stabilizing leg that I just totaled on the van. So we definitely had some interesting logistics management stuff. One of the things I didn't account for was the amount of weight I was going to lose. Like, we expected I was going to lose weight, and I'd got kit, so my running and cycling kit, two sizes smaller. So I'd ordered extra kit for down the back end of the trip. I was in that kit by the time I got up to the top end of WA. So I'd lost 32 kilos by the time I got home in 200 days. This is a very extreme weight loss. Don't recommend it. But I was eating a lot. So I was eating anywhere from 8 to 9,000 calories a day through Mars bar, protein shakes. I cannot look at a Mars bar again. I really can't. Yeah. I ate 314 Mars bars in 200 days I consumed. So still fine with Cocoa Pops. I still love my Cocoa Pops. Yeah. There's a few things I can't eat anymore because of that, because you just sort of go, I can't. And obviously, I was eating a lot of pasta, a lot of rice. Yeah, I do struggle a little bit with that at the moment still, and I'm starting to train a bit more again, so I need to get those sort of higher carbs in. But I went through 24 pairs of runners in the end. So, normally you would probably get a little bit more out of runners, normally under normal conditions. But when you are running on hot bitumen in 40-odd degree heat, yeah, they don't survive. They get, shoes aren't designed to do that for prolonged periods of time. So yeah, I was very fortunate because Run DNA had my back there and would send kit along the way to keep the shoes topped up. But yeah, and I think when we talked about injuries, I think a lot of that was injury prevention. I 100% hands down put my injury prevention solely at my dietitian's feet. So my dietitian, Chloe McLeod, I know a number of occasions she had to manage me because I wasn't consuming, be like, oh, how much, you're eating, you're actually eating enough. So there was a few of those conversations. But I really do feel fueling right is your biggest ticket to injury prevention. And I'm obviously not a trained dietitian. I believe in getting the right people in your corner with this sort of stuff. I'm a massive advocate for getting the right coaches, strength coaches, physios, that sort of stuff in your corner. And I believe in prevention's better than cure. So, I do invest in having a good dietitian. I do invest in, even though that Chloe and the team, Verde Nutrition came on board as a sponsor, but I had them in my corner. I had Run DNA, so I made sure I had really good shoe rotations. So I made sure that my recovery. So I had Normatec boots that I put on at the end of every day. I had my Pillar Performance triple magnesium every night, let alone I was taking collagen powder every morning. So I really do feel like prevention is better than cure. If you get an ouchie, it's really hard, especially on a multi-day event. You're not going to recover. Like, imagine if you'd got, in your year 7 marathons, you didn't quite manage something right. Imagine trying to back that up day after day after day. You just can't. You just can't. So it was even down to sunburn. Like, I became like a zinc lover because the idea of getting my nose or the top of my ears, like my top of my ears would just get a bit crusty and gross. But, it was, I literally looked like a white mummy, like the amount of zinc I had on my nose, my lips, my ears every day. And I did not care. It was really, making sure that I just didn't get burnt because I've then got to manage that if I got burned. So, yeah, I think that's the sort of, there was a few things like that I probably wasn't quite thinking about before I went out. But, yeah, I definitely, the shoe rotation just worked. My cycling kit worked and I had the right gear at the right time. But, yeah, I had to order some, I had the Champion System Detour. They sent me more kit because my cycling shorts ended up too big, and then you don't get the right fit, the right protection, and then you have problems. So I was very particular about that. But and poor Kurt, like my laundry. Can you? So you got to remember, like I had 2 run kits and a cycling kit a day. And again, part of my, I guess, blister and injury management prevention was you can't keep re-wearing salty kit. So I literally had 2 run kits and a cycling kit a day. So Kurt would have to launder at least every second day, if not every day, depending on where we were. So if we were about to go into a remote area where we were going to be not probably have access to stuff for 4 or 5 days, he would have to just keep on top of it every day to make sure that we had enough rotation. So, and it was so expensive. That was not what we were not we would be spending like $150, $200 a week just on laundry. It was insane. And then water, like to buy water just to drink up in WA. We were paying like $25 for a 4-liter box of water. Like it was insane.
You don't take into account all of those little things, I guess, or you can't really because things like unexpected come up. Exactly. Yeah. You can only plan so much really for anything. Dawn, now like a few months after the fact, where are you mentally with everything?
I'm better.
Okay.
I'm better. Again, I reckon if you'd had that conversation with me even 4 weeks ago, I think it would have been probably a different response. But I feel good. I feel stronger.
Yeah.
And I feel ready for 2026 and for planning sort of the next big adventure, which will be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still on the mend.
Yeah.
You know, to be really honest, I still feel days where I'm a bit more fragile. So my husband does take the mickey out of there. He pulls out the phone. He's literally got fragile tape.
Yeah.
And he gets the giggles and he goes, "You're feeling a bit fragile." And he brings the tape, the fragile tape out that you put on boxes, of wine. But yeah, so some days I'm still feeling a bit fragile. If I've had a couple of big days of lots of people, I just know I'm going to have to retreat for a day or two. So, even the other weekend, I didn't leave the house for 3 days. So, I've just got to be aware. I feel like I'm aware of it now, to be honest, Jordan. And I'm being kind to myself, but I do feel a lot better. But it's still a work in progress. Yeah, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself. I love that one. Yeah. I think that's so important. Yeah. For the person listening, what is something that you want to leave them with? What is a piece of advice or just something that you want them to remember today?
Just do it. Like for me, if you're thinking about doing something outside your comfort zone or something's been nagging at you or you're feeling like, something's missing, right? Do it. So, and start with what makes you excited, what makes you tick, and build on that. So if it's, whatever that looks like. So, if it's sport related or not, but obviously I really encourage exercise because it's very good for you and very good for your heart. But that's my biggest takeaway. You don't want any regrets, right? And I can say right now that if for whatever reason it all stopped for me tomorrow, so I get tapped on the shoulder and said, "No, you can't do anything like you've been doing ever again." Man, I've had a good bloody ride. So I don't regret my life at all. And I'm only 41. And what I've been able to do in those 41 years, in particular the last 23 years now, I am showing my age. Oh man, I've lived life. So big takeaway. If you wanna, if something's nagging at you and you're feeling like something's missing, figure it out and do it.
Love that. Where can people find you? Tell them about the podcast, maybe launch all of that or plug that in. Yeah,
absolutely. So Heartline Endurance on Instagram and that. I'm actually we're just revamping the website. You can still have a look at dawnbeaumont.com.au. So that's got all the Queen of Hearts stuff. So if you want to have a look and relive what I did this year, please do. Heartline Endurance is the morphed version of that and what I'll be working with moving forward. Heartbeats and Strides is the podcast by Radiant Voices Media. So that's been really exciting to do. I feel like I'm starting to hit my stride a little bit more with that. It helps when you get the right mic and get the clarity on some of the audio, which was amazing. But I'm really enjoying doing that and talking about and heart health and endurance sports. But yeah, please, on Instagram, Facebook, all of that sort of thing. So jump on, follow, see what I'm up to. And yeah, anything you want us to talk about on that podcast or, you have any questions, please reach out. I love it when I've had quite a few questions lately and I'm loving it. And it just keeps me reminded of what my purpose is. And I really like that.
Love that. Well, thank you for coming back on the show today. This was great. That was super insightful. I think, again, we only get like snippets, right, on social media or this and that. So I think people will be quite interested in learning and the experience that you had, basically.
Oh, Thanks, Jordan. It's been awesome, as always, getting to come and play with you.
That's all right. Well, that'll also be in the show note, everyone, for, you listening right now. You can visit Dawn on Instagram, Facebook. You can listen to the podcast. So be sure to scroll through the show notes and you can find that there. But thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much.